Savvy Central Radio, drawing out the best from our guests with your host, Christina Nitchman. Savvy Central Radio is home to over 100,000 listeners per month globally and runs in syndication on 8 AM and FM platforms, including iHeartRadio and 6 podcasting platforms. To find out more about our paid sponsorship opportunities or to become a guest and find out how we can help you get your message out to the world, call 718 area code 713-2289 or email at savvycentralradio@gmail.com.
This is your host, Christina Nitchman. Each week, Savvy runs weekly broadcasts providing entrepreneurs and successful individuals a platform to express their dreams, hopes, lessons learned, expertise, and wisdom with the world. Our first guest today is Rick Berden of Essentials. Essentials gathered comprehensive data from over 70,000 high school students across the United States. This set of data is the first of its kind, giving us a snapshot of what attributes make a student successful in school and beyond. Find out more about Rick and Essentials at essentialsllc.com. Our second guest is Ashvini Mashru, an award-winning registered dietitian, nutritionist, media contributor, and author of Small Steps to Slim. Today, Ashvini shares how to attain optimum nutrition in your life by understanding your big why. Find out more about Ashvini at wellnessnutritionconcepts.com. Hi, Rick. Welcome to Savvy Central Radio. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing fabulous. We had a wonderful pre-talk before we got started here, talking about our other passions like my flying and your hiking and such and biking. But now today we're going to join with this audience and we're going to talk a little bit about your wonderful research you've done and starting with your organization Essentials. Share with the audience a little bit about your background and what brought you to creating Essentials.
Well, thank you. I would love to share that, and hopefully we'll get past talking about me pretty quickly and then take a look at what matters a whole lot more, which is this upcoming generation of Americans under 20, very diverse set. But my background started in the clinical psychology space. I actually graduated from UNM in 1988 with a degree in speech communications and later went to Webster University out of St. Louis, transitioned to do master's degree work at Texas A&M, and then later started working in the PhD program and doing a lot of work with assessment research, but primarily family therapy at Purdue University. And that led to the foundation of a number of counseling centers that were originally called New Light Counseling, with one in West Lafayette, Indiana, one in Rio Rancho, New Mexico, and one in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Those were ultimately absorbed into Family Life Counseling, and I became the clinical director of this region. So from there, I just doing clinical work and working with really difficult subjects like post-traumatic stress disorder and really just painful kind of family issues. I ended up being more depressed than most of my clients and left that side of things and started looking at organizational and industrial psychology and took a little break to do some other projects, but then came back about, it's actually been 10 years ago when we founded Essentials. And the whole idea there was to use assessments to help people make good career choices, sort of like the eHarmony of business. I just thought that if we could match personality and we could match behavioral attributes that a person has and gravitates towards naturally, and we could pair those traits with what employers were looking for and what the requirements were on the job, we could probably create a happier workforce. Pretty basic kind of idea. And if the workforce was happier, like when anybody's happy, they tend to flow a little more easily and things tend to turn out a little better. That's kind of the premise of the company. So about 8 years ago, a colleague of mine was starting to do research in the high school space and going and talking to high schoolers about after high school, about potential career paths, about colleges, about aptitude. And we partnered and started using assessments with high school students and in the last, and colleges. So that's been going on now in colleges and high schools for, I would say, probably about 7, 8 years. And in that time, we've gathered pretty extensive psychometric measurements and behavioral attributes on, I want to say it's well over 200,000 students now. So I'm pretty sure, I don't know all of the research that's going on in that subset of our population, but the biggest studies I've seen had in the 10 to 20,000 sample size, and we're now, like I said, approaching 200,000. So I think we're starting to gain some knowledge on folks 17 to 25 that's a deeper understanding of that generation than what I'm often reading in the media. And we're starting to form some ideas about learning and about changes in the ways people interact, changes in approach to intimacy, changes in physicality, changes in what it means to kind of have value or meaning or purpose. There's some dramatic shifts in those ways of being, which I think are primarily driven by changes in technology. I think we have to point to changes in technology as the key variable that's most changing life on Earth right now, other than the ecological stuff and the big stuff like global warming and stuff, and just big themes. This whole idea of technology is really changing the world, and particularly here. I don't know about the rest of the world because we're studying American populations, although diverse American populations.
Yeah, actually, Rick, I would say that's probably changing the world. I read recently a wonderful book by one of my favorite marketers who is studying, it's called Small Data by Martin Lindstrom. And he has noticed that with children all over Europe and even in the Middle East, that they are really loving their smartphone, social media, and that their way to connect, like he was like studying kids all abroad, and he had them decide, like, what do they do in the morning? And in the first 2 hours, they are connecting via their smartphone, taking pictures of what they're going to wear and sharing with their friends and getting that source of approval from their friends on deciding what should we do next? What should I wear next? What are we going to do today? And they're doing it as a community. Has any of this played out in your research? And
I'm so interested to hear that because I wasn't aware, but I'm definitely going to get Small Data because I would love to see what's happening on the world platform. But yes, emphatically, yes, there's significant changes, especially let's think about the baby boomer generation, and let's talk about that group that was born between 1944 and 1964. That was a heavily individualistic and autonomous group. So, for example, in the workforce, most incentive plans were directly tied to money and financial gain, and particularly in sales. And personal achievement was greatly rewarded, and it was all about individual accomplishment. And it's interesting because a trend that we're seeing pretty strongly is that this generation is much more around collaboration, around group decision-making, around reward systems that are more collective and not as individual, and around group wins and group victories, much more so than individual achievement. Now, we're speaking in large metadata here and big trends. So there could be 5 million 15-year-olds in New York City that are not like that, right? They're highly individualistic. They're highly competitive. They're highly into individual sports. So I'm talking about big, big trends. And we can never just say one group is this or that way. But there are certain trends. Even the word stereotype actually refers to a group of behaviors that describe a collective group of people or race. So if you take away the stigma of that word, there's stereotype comes from looking at large samples.
Well, this is fascinating.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say this is just truly fascinating to see the trend. And you had mentioned a little bit something else that I found curious, and that is, how technology is really changing the way people relate to each other and communicate to each other. Explain what your data found out about that.
Yeah, I want to answer that question. I want to make one pretty strong comment about the workforce and businesses in general.
Yeah.
If businesses do not adapt to the way they cater to this generation, I think a huge number of businesses are going to be out of business. So when you talk about how do people connect, how does younger people connect? So here's something that's non-research oriented, but something that happened on Wednesday. So since we study this generation so much, I was in town. I had the opportunity to carpool a group of 12-year-old girls. And as a researcher, it was very interesting to me because I just had them get in the car and didn't say anything. So with every single one of them, so 4 of them, they immediately were on their mobile devices. So mobile devices are by far the preferred medium of communication and gathering knowledge for Generation Z, which I'm calling anybody under 20. But then there would be random laughs, and it was because they were communicating through softball or through smartphones as opposed to through verbal communication. But they were very much communicating with each other. They were doing things individually, but they were also sharing or had windows open or were using certain social media platforms. I believe the one they were using then was Musical.ly, and they were developing content that they were sharing with one another in real time while they're all in the car together. And what was so interesting to me was I came back and started speaking with one of our statisticians, Stephanie Fuentes, and I said, Stephanie, I observed this behavior. Would you take a look at a large data set and see if you're noticing any trends like that? And so she did what she does, some sort of analysis on 70,000 people, which is a pretty darn good sample size, and noticed that as a trend of communication, that even sitting side by side, there will definitely be at least one device that's part of the communication patterns shared by 2 young people in immediate proximity.
Wow.
Whereas a baby boomer, for example, or even a lot of millennials would not be using that device as the medium of communication when you're sitting right across from somebody.
Now, is this a positive as far as business goes and such, or is there some drawbacks to this? What have you seen as the plus or minuses to both to this new way of communicating?
Well, based on perception, based on point of view, based on bias, we could probably sit down and have several really intelligent and educated people, and they could probably give us 50 points on how this is so positive, and then the other 50 could argue on how this is going to be the destruction of the future of America. And the truth is, we don't know. We definitely know that communication is changing. Ideas about identity are changing. Something we discovered that was really interesting was that one of the things we measure is exhibition. And exhibition is the desire, it's a core need developed by Andrew Murray, who was a real preeminent theorist in personality. So exhibition is the desire to be center stage. So the higher the exhibition score, from 0 to 100, the higher the score, the more you want to be seen, the more you want to be noticed, The lower the exhibition score, the more you want to remain in the background. So when we did our initial research with 10,000 subjects many, many years ago, the national average on exhibition, the national average was a 50%. Well, in our research on Generation Z, that average, and we're talking in the last study we did was 70,000 high schoolers, 70,000, so that's a massive sample size. The exhibition score averaged over 72%.
Wow.
That is a 20% increase in one generation. That is probably the most significant change I've ever seen. So when we talk about this, when people just, whoever labeled this a selfie generation, in the sense of wanting to be seen and wanting what you're doing to be broadcast, that has increased 20% in an incredibly short time. I don't know the implications of that. I think we could form ideas, which in research are called hypothesis. It's just an opinion, or hypothesis is simply an opinion. So you form an opinion, and in good research, you test that opinion. You design a study to test whether or not your opinion is validated or invalidated. You publish that research so that other researchers and other people can say, okay, this is what they found. Let's see if we find the same things. And then over time, you start to figure stuff out. So when you think about the advent of technology being right around the turn of the century, we're talking about studying a phenomenon that is perhaps the most game-changing phenomenon in the history of the world, and you're only looking at something that's about 15 years old.
Wow. It's totally intriguing to me, Rick, because what I've noticed is I've seen people that what seems a lot more connected, even myself. I mean, I'm talking to people all over the world thanks to technology. It's just phenomenal. Even having FaceTime with them on my phone in Israel, we're walking down the beach and I get to see, people in their swimsuits in Israel. How cool is that? That's really pretty awesome. But I wonder, when you say there's more of an exhibition or, wanting to be heard or noticed, I wonder if that means that inside, if people feel really less noticed because of the technology, because there's not that really physical connection. I mean, I guess we wouldn't know unless we did more further research.
So you could form that as a hypothesis, right? Your hypothesis would be that maybe people are feeling less connected and wanting or craving more intimacy. And because of that, they're using social media and taking pictures or recording video or recording audio or film of themselves as a way to stay connected. My guess on that would be absolutely that's going on a lot. Do we have that verified in some scientific way? No, but there's some reason going on that people want to be connected, and this is allowing that to happen.
Yeah.
And it's allowing it to happen. And the ideas around intimacy and connection and communication and even social skills, like what are effective social skills, ideas around that are shifting in real time. Yeah, so I might say, oh, you need to really have these great social skills, meaning I can sit across from you and we can talk, or we can go through conflict and we can connect and we can share stories. And today's generation, Generation Z could look at us and go, that's absurd.
But it's interesting.
You're like a dinosaur.
Yeah, exactly. But what's interesting, Rick, is that I've had a number of guests on. I think we've had at least 600 guests on Savvy since we got started. And I've met a number of them in person. Some of them have looked me up when they've come to New York because they don't live in the area. And we've connected. But because we had that personal conversation, either pre-interview and then the interview and post-interview, when we finally meet and I see them face to face, it feels like I've known them a long time. And so I think that's the kind of plus of having the social media and all the technology, is it really allows you to connect. And then when you finally do meet physically, it allows that much deeper connection, I think.
Yes. And some interesting point too is through technology, you can eliminate a lot of the social anxiety that so many millions of people suffer with of just meeting somebody new. And when you have to do that in person, that is a lot more risky than if you can do it through some platform that you can simply turn off. And so if you can build the bridges of connection with a person through technology in a very safe manner, then exactly like you just described, when you see them in person, it doesn't have to be nearly as anxiety provoking.
Yeah, I mean, that is so true. Look at Match.com and eHarmony. You were mentioning that your company is kind of the eHarmony for understanding, helping people.
Business.
Business, which I thought was interesting. But me and my partner now that have been dating for over 10 years, we got started on Match.com, and it was interesting because we did 4 months of letter writing. We were, taking it very much easy. We had some, negative experiences in the back and in the prior to meeting, so we decided to take it really slow. So we wrote letters via email for about 4 months, and when we finally met, it felt like we'd dated for a year already. But interestingly, his parents and his family thought, "Oh, you just met this girl last week," but we felt like we knew each other at least a couple of years because of all the letter writing, which were much deeper and personal than, say, us going on a date, and we wouldn't have divulged a lot of the information we did in email. So it was interesting. But older folks in his family were like, "Well, you just met this gal. What are you talking about? You're serious already." And so it was interesting. It allowed us to get to a stage much quicker than we would have probably physically.
So if we had a sample size of 1 in our study, and that one person was you, and we said, have you had an experience where the use of technology, rather than standard social skills or standard face-to-face dating or trying to select somebody as a partner, have you had an experience where that turned out to be really positive and powerful? You just answered yes, absolutely. Is that completely misunderstood by other people? By your self-report? Yes, it is. Is that good or bad? I don't know, but it sure is different.
Yep. It really allows for interesting conversation. Now, I liked what you mentioned before, that this Generation Z, because of the technology and the way modern life is working, that they're much more collaborative. Share how that might work in the business world, because I like that. It sounds really cool.
I think it sounds really cool, too. The thing is, though, is how does a workforce or a marketplace that's not geared towards that either adapt, or how does Generation Z adapt in a way that it's not a total wreck? And when I look back, one of the things we've studied is values and core motivators of human beings. That's been an emphasis of personal interest of mine for well over 2 decades, a focus of our study, a focus of assessing well over 100,000 people just on those subjects. And that testing ranging from young elementary school children to people in their 90s. What we're finding is the things that people really care about, the things that drive people, the values that they hold, that's really not very different throughout the generations. And so it really comes down to people being able to not pass quick judgments, being able to listen to one another, and all of the things that have always kind of mattered to bridge those kind of gaps. But what we fortunately do live events across the country and some smaller cities, but mainly larger cities. And one of the biggest things I run into, or we hear, or we're asked to do workshops on, is the conflict between Generation Z, or millennials really, more millennials and baby boomers in the marketplace. And what one of the things I show is we go back to some ancient Hebrew texts and some ancient Indian and Buddhist texts that are 6,000 years old on average. Maybe the younger text is like 2,000 years old, showing how the older generation tends to think the next generation is disconnected, that they don't work very hard, that they're kind of lazy, and that they're going to be the ruin of this society. And we show that pattern repeating every 20 years from the beginning of recorded mankind.
That's so funny.
And so I tend to kind of see it like that myself.
Well, it's interesting, I think, Rick, is that really, I hope your data will really show people that really it's not about finding fault or what's better or not better, but finding how to use people's traits and skills and their resources to the best of everyone's ability. Like taking a collaborative standpoint can actually add a lot to a company's growth if you change the way of doing things. Like when I worked at one company that I loved at the time, they used to do these competitive things that the best person on the floor that brought in the most money would get a free dinner on the company. Well, that kind of led one coworker to hate another coworker if they continually brought in higher numbers. So I had suggested, why don't we do, at the time, because it drive me crazy to see this kind of anger between one person or another. I said, we're one department, we're one company. Why don't we just have if we all meet this number and work to our best of our ability and we bring in like maybe 20% more in money this quarter, that we all get to go out as a team and have like bowling night or something. And they were like, well, we'll think about it. But see, that's that kind of collaborative thing you were talking about. I mean, there can be a lot of positive to that. We can all get rewarded. And I mean, there can be a different way to go about it, but it can be something that can actually be beneficial if we just drop the idea that it has to be wrong or right, a different way of being.
Yeah, probably if we get away from that kind of black and white thinking in general, we can move towards a place that's more productive, and regardless of what we're talking about. But what's really interesting is very few collaborative projects actually work. And many projects that are collaborative or around that kind of idea fail. And the primary reason they fail is because inevitably when you're working in a group, and especially if you're working on in a group setting with a deadline, so often the individuals will contribute individually and then just kind of pull it together as a group at the end, rather than doing true collaboration beginning to end. And the reason for that is because inevitably when you work in close proximity with somebody, you will have conflict. And the biggest challenge is people's inability to effectively resolve conflict. And that is the number one thing that holds back Generation Z, millennials, baby boomers, and the older folks. So while ideas of collaboration, they just feel right to me anyway. They feel right to me, and clearly they feel right to you. What's so interesting is something that seems so obvious. Then when you try to put it into practice, you run into these things like, we all want this, and why can't we do it? And then you go down to the trail of, oh, well, it's because I don't like you, or you don't like me, or we're pissed at each other. I start thinking you're lazy. We start throwing this stuff out there. And then the next thing you know, we're doing all of our stuff by ourselves, and then pulling it together, like pretending it was a collaborative project at the end.
Wow. So I guess the real thing moving forward for all generations is really conflict resolution, to really get a handle on that in the workplace.
Well, that's a big deal. And a lot of the conflicts right now is an older worker may see a younger worker spending time on social media, on their phone or whatever, and they may automatically assume that they're either screwing around or doing something that's not productive. And I think you should be very careful with those assumptions and definitely move towards a greater understanding of what's actually going on, as opposed to kind of having rigid ideas of like no social media in the workplace. We're working with a school system right now who basically has a zero tolerance for any kind of technology during the school day. I'm like, okay, so Generation Z spends a minimum every day of 10 hours with technology. So because not only are they technology natives, they're beyond that. There's almost no gap between them and technology. They're almost the same. And so that's their whole life. And so we think we're going to put them in a productive sort of situation when everything they do all day long and everything they love is like taken away from them for 6 hours. You think that's going to create some happy kids? Good luck with that program.
That's interesting. And I know I've heard some studies done at MIT where they had students where they took away the technology because the students, in college, early college age, were like, well, I can handle Googling, Facebooking, and listening to the lecturer. And the teachers or professors were like, I have to practically do a jig on the desk here to keep their attention because they're inside their computers or whatever. And it was driving them crazy. So they told them no technology. Now, they did find that there was greater focus on of course, them paying attention to the material, but they were very resentful. So, I mean, where do you draw the line? Where's too much? I mean, should there be like, at this time for 50 minutes, you can't have your texter on or whatever? I mean, because I do understand, but, it's kind of.
Okay. So one of the trends that seems to be indicated in the research is that millennials and Generation Z tend to be bored easily. Okay. And it makes sense though, because when you have access to stimulation 24/7, you're going to go through that information and gravitate towards the stuff that excites you or resonates with you or hits some or triggers some sort of need. It tends to be how most of us act.
Yeah.
So partly, I think the responsibility of the teacher and the educator, et cetera, is to figure out ways to be that center of interest and to figure out what they're looking at that is interesting and exciting to them while they're in class, and figure out ways to incorporate that type of learning into the classroom. Yeah. And that's what we're spending so much time with flipped classroom concepts, to where most of the lecturing is done outside of the class, and they draw their knowledge outside of the class, and then they come in and they're ready to work on projects, and the teacher becomes more of a moderator facilitator. Yeah. And that kind of environment's gaining a lot of traction. It's a really interesting thing, because unless you're a phenomenally, let's say I'm teaching physics 101, okay, chances are I'm not as good at physics as Albert Einstein, but as the professor, if I assigned like 4 YouTube clips on Albert Einstein as part of my introductory lecture, or the best person in the world, or the most dynamic person in the world, or the gal who just won doing TED Talks on introductory physics, and they can learn from that person who's like probably way better than me anyway. Yeah. And then they can just come back and I can help them do the stuff that we're supposed to be doing to learn physics. Then not only do I not have to be like some phenomenal performer as a professor, I get to be part of the learning environment. And if I'm teaching that, hopefully I really am digging it myself. Yeah. So then I can be a part of 20, 30, 40, 50 young people teaching me the best stuff out there on introductory physics that I have no idea even exists.
Yeah, I love that you went here, Rick, because for me, I've always felt the model of education in, probably, I don't know if it's the rest of the world, but I know here is more of a stand up there, write something on the board, I tell it to you, you pair it back, and you get an A. To me, it's really ineffective. To me, really, education should be more about experiential, to get in your bones. For me, that's the way I've always learned, is really to experience it. And so I like this idea of what you're mentioning, because it shouldn't have to be where you just drone on talking and then you expect people just to stay tuned for like 8 hours a day. I mean, how do you expect even children at 5, 6, 7, 8 to stay in a chair for that many hours and not want to like jump the ceiling? And then we're telling them, oh, okay, you can't sit still for 8 hours. We're going to have to give you some Ritalin. I'm like, excuse me, I don't think there's something wrong with him. He's a kid.
Yeah, it's times have changed, man. Yeah. I mean, the way of learning has changed. Information has changed. Knowledge has changed. The way and how quickly you can get knowledge and assimilate knowledge, and you can get right to the core of things. Mm-hmm. So if I can be taught something in 8 minutes as opposed to an hour, I'm probably going to choose the 8 minutes and then practice it for the rest of the time.
Exactly. Yeah, this is so fascinating. I would love to chat several more hours with you, Rick, but we do have to close out the show here. But before we do, I want you to let everyone know where they can find out more about you and find out more about Essentials.
Yeah, I think it's pretty simple. If you just go to our website, which is the word essentialsllc.com, essentialsllc.com, that's the best way to do it, or at least get an idea of what we're doing. A lot of the research that we have is is private, but we are publishing some studies, and in the next month or so, those are going to be there. So thank you so much for the time today, Christina. I just really loved it and loved connecting with you, and I'm so appreciative to have an opportunity like this.
It was fascinating. I mean, we could talk for hours. It's such a fascinating topic, but hopefully it'll really engage people to get out there, find out more about essentials, and find out how they can improve their workplace and make it better for everyone. Because, things are changing, and it's good. It's awesome. So again, Rick, I want to thank you for coming to share your wisdom and gifts today on Savvy Central Radio.
Well, thank you very much, Christina. It's been great.
Welcome to the Racing to Success Minute with Nadine Lajoie. Be yourself in business. Why a lot of people are just artificial, they are faking it, they are not really doing in business what they do in life. For example, if you are doing a lot of jokes and having a lot of fun in your life, do the same in your business. Don't try to be somebody that you are not, because people will feel it, and it will be harder for you to close the sale, to have more clients, to make more money. And if you don't make enough money, and if you are not authentic and be yourself, that will be hard for you to have the lifestyle that you want for you and your family. So be yourself inside and outside of the business, and it will be so much better. This is Nadine at NadineRacing.com.
Savvy Central Radio, drawing out the best from our guest, with your host, Christina Nichman.
Now here's our interview with Ashvini Mashru. Hi, Ashvini. Welcome to Savvy Central Radio. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing fabulous. I'm so excited that our wonderful friend Penny has gotten us in contact with each other. And you're going to share with our audience some important things. You're a nutritionist, but you're going to share some important things with our audience about why it is so important to understand and have your big why. But before we head on there, share with our audience a little bit about your background, how you got interested in working in nutrition.
So I've been a dietitian for almost all my career, about 15 years. I'm originally from India, and that's where I started my bachelor's in nutrition. And when I got married and came to this country, obviously I had to go back to school again because my degree in bachelor's from India was of no value. So I went back to school here, started from scratch. Obviously married a American and a total stranger, and now did my master's, went through school, and then got my RD credentials. And I worked in healthcare, clinical practices, doctors' practices, hospitals for about 15 years before I started my own business, Wellness Nutrition Concepts. And that's what I've been doing for the past 4 years now.
Wow. Well, that must have been a really big change, coming here and working as a nutritionist. And was there anything you found as far as nutrition and the way people see nutrition here as opposed to India?
Yeah, it's so interesting that you asked that question. Where I come from, food is obviously very different. It is, and food here in America is very different, meaning food is always made from scratch, where in India or even at home, because I have that background, or I should say the culture, it's always made from scratch. There's no processed food. There's no, I cook every day. There's no preservatives or added sugars. It's mostly lentils, vegetables, fresh fruits and vegetables, healthy fats. So it's very, and I knew that early on that due to my culture and the upbringing that I had in India, I knew that early on that food makes a big, it plays a major role in how we feel about ourselves, how our lifestyle is basically, and it also dictates our health conditions. Everything revolves around food. And how we basically present ourselves to the world, or what we do, in our business, or even with our kids, what we teach our kids. It basically revolves around food. I learned that early on, that if we have our roots around food are strong enough, we can pass that on to our kids in a better, stronger way.
It would seem to me that in this culture in the United States, there's really a loss of kind of respect for food, to see it's all the wonderful components it has to make our lives healthy and better and nurture us, that we see it more as sometimes getting together and just, I find for myself sometimes I'm rushing 300 miles an hour. I'm stuffing the food into my mouth, not even paying attention to the senses, the sensations, the tastes, and all of that. I think that plays a component in our culture. What have you noticed?
Well, so I mean, definitely people, I've noticed a lot of differences culturally, basically just different cultures. It's just the difference in cultures, mentality, the way people look at food, or even, if it's not even revolving around food, it's just a busy American lifestyle that makes people more predisposed to the way they look at food, Indians definitely take the time. I shouldn't say Indians, but, where I come from, and me personally, definitely take the time to make my own food from scratch, sit down and eat mindfully, and take in all our senses, as you said, taste, our smell, touch, texture, color. And that all takes into account how we savor our food. And that when you start savoring our food, that's when we enjoy food. And when we enjoy our food, we're not craving, all kinds of stuff, like sugar and salt and all kinds of stuff. And once we do that, we don't go on diet because, we're not craving stuff. We're not feeling guilty after binging or eating. And then we go on diets and we feel, okay, well, I'm going to go on this diet, and we lose weight. People lose weight, but then it's not a lifestyle change. It's not a behavior change, and it's not sustainable. And people keep going back and forth and yo-yo. So it's basically going back to the basics of how we look at food, how we, food helps our body and nourishes us, and just following that.
And how does understanding your why in the world and getting connected to that help you be a healthier person in all ways, including in the way you eat?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I wanted to discuss this with you today. Specifically, is in my 15 years of being a dietitian and then 4 years of my business, I have seen that whenever people come to me to ask for help, they are asking, okay, the first question is, I want to lose weight. So they always focus on their want. I want to lose weight, but they don't know their why they want to lose weight. Or how they even want to lose weight. So, for example, it's April. I mean, I can't believe it's April already. So first quarter of 2016 is already done. People made resolutions. People probably, made all kinds of resolutions. And one of the resolutions is to lose weight. Most people make weight loss as a resolution. And the fact is, we're already in April. How many people probably were able to stick with their New Year's resolutions of losing weight? Statistics show that only 8% meet their New Year's resolutions, and only 24% of us will make resolutions and each and every year and never succeed. So that's a very sad statistic right there. And the reason why this happens is very plain and simple, which is people don't understand their personal why. Like, when people come to me, the first thing is, I want to lose weight. I want to fit into younger, smaller, more fun clothes. Or they say, I want to get in the best shape of my life. Or I've even heard that, I want to look great for that wedding, reunion, or the celebration, or the party, or my 40th that's coming, that's the next couple of months, or the cruise or vacation. Well, these are all great reasons to lose weight on the surface.
Yeah.
But the fact is, most of these reasons that I just mentioned are not going to get us out of the bed early to either work out, or 7 months from now, our motivation will be out the window, or even the next year, there's no motivation here. So every year after that, day in and day out, those reasons are not going to get us out of the bed for the rest of your life. Because what happens is, if if our why is one of the reasons I just mentioned, once we get there, once we reach those goals, and then what? What do we do?
Wow. You know what it seems to me, what I'm getting here is that really being overweight or you want to lose weight, it's really a symptom of something greater. If you're overweight, what is the greater symptom behind it? Are you unfulfilled, or do you hate your job and your life and where you're at? Where do you really want to be right now, and where are the parts you're really not happy with?
Yeah, I mean, it does project a lot of other aspects of your life, your weight. It could be something underlying that's going on that needs to be fixed first. And then, your weight needs to be worked on, or your nutrition needs to be worked on. But yes, definitely people need to tap into their why, before they even work on their nutrition or their weight loss or their fitness goals. Because once they get to know their why, and this why goes very deep down inside, meaning, imagine how you peel an onion and you keep peeling to get to the core onion. Yeah. That's what the why is. You need to peel out a lot of layers from you before you get to your core why and to find your motivation and your why. And that drive, that passion that drives you every morning, gets you out of bed to go for exercise, or wake up in the morning with the motivation that I want to do this for myself. So yeah, it does go reflect all aspects of your life.
Wow. And I know you've worked with a lot of people, and without sharing any personal details or names, could you share a success story of someone you've worked with that discovered their great why and how it transformed them and their nutrition?
Sure. So yeah, I do work with a lot of people. Most of them, I work with them via Skype or FaceTime, which technology has definitely helped me in that way. I had a specific client, very busy professional, I should say very high profile professional, and very busy, and kept going on all kinds of diets just to lose weight. And, he lost weight, gained it back, lost weight, gained it back. I mean, he was yo-yoing everywhere. He didn't have the energy to get through the day. He literally all he ate was kind bars. He skipped breakfast and then he ate kind bars up until dinner. Wow. So literally he was starving himself that he didn't want to eat his meals. He was starving himself because he was afraid that he'll gain weight again. Whatever he was losing and gaining, he'll gain more weight. So there was something underlying that is very personal, which obviously I can't share. So we had to get to a lot of things, like get to the core and peel a lot of layers before I even found out what was actually going on. There was something going on in his personal life that that was kind of reflecting on his weight and his job. I mean, he was in a great position in his career, but his weight and his personal life was not that great. So, so the way I helped him was I gave him an example of how awesome he is in his work, and he is very at a good position in his work where people respect him, know him. He's a well-known personality. And I asked him to use the same example, what he did in his personal life, and use the same tactics that he used to get to that point in his professional life, and use that same in his personal life. So kind of like make a shift and use the same, I should say, the same ideas or the same examples, and plug it into his personal life. And we did it step by step. It was not a, overnight thing. We did it in step by step. We made goals every morning. Every time, not every morning, but every session we had, we made goals for him. And that's how he, basically now today he has changed his lifestyle. He's changed his behaviors around food. He's changed his mindset around food. And it took it takes a lot of effort from his end as well, because he was, first of all, ready to do that. And very important.
Yeah.
He was ready to make that change. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to be at the point where I'm ready. It's it. And there's been time, even when someone has an addiction, say on something, and they try to force their kids into rehab or something, until your child, your teenager, your friend, your whomever, they have to be the one to say, I'm done with this. I'm ready to take the step forward. So, yeah. I totally get what you
same
mean.
goes with health and fitness. You know, you guys, if someone who comes to me, they need to be ready to change their lifestyle from inside out, not just from the outside, you know, doing some diets or some shakes or some powders or some pills. That's not how I work. We go, all my work is from the inside out. And they're a totally new person after they're done working. I mean, I see those transformations happen, and it's like magic happening. That's what I work for, you know, just to see those transformations. And I feel so delighted when I see those changes happening that it's all worth it in the end for them, you know?
Yeah. I know for me in the past, for any health issues or anything turmoil going on in my life, often it's not the thing I'm seeing on the outside, whatever catastrophe. It's really something that needs to be resolved inside that I haven't looked at yet. And I think that's what you're referring to. And like when you mentioned your client, he was all into liking Kind bars and eating that because he didn't want to gain weight. I would totally look at that. And this is things that I think we all do to rationalize at certain times. We think we're being healthy. It's like, oh, Kind bars are really healthy. They're nuts and whatever. And you can convince yourself I'm being super healthy, except that you're just really hiding the symptoms and going deeper into what's really causing me to gain weight, what's really deep down inside that I need to look at that's uncomfortable right now or something I don't want to dwell in.
Right. And it's not only obviously the food that he was trying to not eat, but he was actually starving himself, you know, not eating anything and just not eating a real meal. That's what I'm saying. And so today, I mean, he's a whole different person.
Is there anything people can do that may be listening in that say, you know, I want to make a change, but they really haven't stepped out yet to maybe meet a nutritionist like you or really take any big steps to move forward because there's something inside of them, maybe some fear stopping them from really taking that first step. Do you have any ideas for them on how they can really start to peel back the layers, take that first step to wellness and to actually getting their weight under control? What would be your advice to them?
So your question is, how would they start getting to know their why? Is that what you were asking? Well,
yeah, that too, I suppose, because there might be, okay, I don't even know where to even begin to discover why I don't want to do this. I know I don't like where I'm at, but I don't even know where to begin. And they might not even know it's a big why and how to even figure that out. What could I possibly do to unlayer whatever that true cause is that's stopping me from success?
What I usually recommend is usually a little activity that people can do. It takes about 15 minutes where kind of have to sit in a quiet place and think. It's a thinking activity. And then obviously I recommend writing it down where I recommend taking a blank sheet of paper and writing what is my true why. And it's literally writing an answer that pops in your head. It doesn't have to be a complete sentence. Even a short phrase is fine. The idea is to repeat the step of writing the answer until you get to an answer that makes you cry, that makes you emotional, meaning it has to have an emotional attachment to it. That's your answer, and that's your why. So, for example, in my case, usually my why is my daughters. You know, that's my why. I look at my daughters and I think of, okay, I wake up every single day because I want to be a good role model for them. I want to be the best mom I can be. I want to be good in my business. I want to be the best version of myself in my job, with my health and fitness, with my relationships with my family, my friends, my business partners, my colleagues, and also with my emotional well-being. So if I want to be my best version of myself for all these people in my life, I need to first take care of myself, you know, and if I'm not taking care of myself, I'm not going to be a best version of myself. So I look at my daughters and I'm like, okay, well, I need to be a good role model for them. So that is my why, because there's an emotional attachment to it. Now, not everyone will have an their kids as their emotional attachment. Everybody has a different why. Kind of go through that process for 10 minutes to see what is an answer that comes to their mind that makes them emotionally attached to their why. And that's what I recommend asking yourself.
Wow, that is so revealing. And that I had something like that happen to me, Ashvini, because very many years ago, I was having difficulty with my finances, and I went to a workshop that would partner us. And they had asked us, one person would say to me, and then they would say a person sitting in front of me, and they would ask me, what does money mean to you? And you would just say the first thing that comes to your mind, just like you said. And then they would write it down. But you would do this for 5 minutes straight, where they asked the question over and over. And there was a lot of resistance from me and other people in the room, because I'm like, I'm done. There's no other list here. I'm done. After you're like, I can't come up with anything else. But just like you said, it's really to peel back the layers, because the person running the workshop said basically you usually say, when you first start the exercise, all the things you've been told to think about what money's all about. So it's really not from you and your own heart and deep inside. It's really perceptions of what you've been told to think and say. But as you keep layering it and you keep spitting it out there, don't think, just talk. Don't think, just say it. Then what's really deep inside of you starts to pour out. And then when we did the exercise, people were in tears. So was I. I was looking at my list going, where did this come from? So it's powerful stuff.
It is very powerful, right? I mean, once you get to know your core why, that's that motivation and drive and passion that you use in any aspect of your life. Specifically, for me, I need that why from people to help them with their health and their nutrition, their fitness, because you can use it in your finances, you can use it any aspect of your life. But as far as my business goes, I need that why from them for helping them get through their health, fitness, and nutrition goals. I know what motivates them. I know what will drive them every morning, and they will still stick to their goals, their health goals, their nutrition goals, or their weight loss goals. And that is what I need to work with people.
So in essence, really, the first step in all of this and becoming your full wellness and health and nutrition really starts with understanding your why behind everything. Once that's on the table, then things can start to go forward, and you can start making those real lifestyle changes that are necessary to have the life you want and to have the body you want.
Yes, exactly. That's my book actually goes through the process of discovering why, and then it walks them through the process of making lifestyle changes in simple steps. And that's what my book also has more details in it.
Yeah. Well, share with everyone where they can find your book and where they can find out more about you, work with you, because you said you do some FaceTime. So if you're available, maybe people can hook up with you, work with you, share that with them.
So my book is available. My book is Small Steps to Slim. It is a 10-step lifestyle change or behavior change system that I created. My book helps them make major lifestyle changes or behavior changes, basically, so that they can achieve weight loss goals or any other health goals in 10 simple steps. And literally, there's very simple steps. It's not brain surgery. It's just making literally simple steps that most people don't even think of making, because everybody's running around thinking of changing their health via a diet. My book is available on Amazon. The title is, again, Small Steps to Slim. It is available on Kindle and Barnes & Noble as well. And my business name is Wellness Nutrition Concepts. So the website is wellnessnutritionconcepts.com. Yes, I help people via Skype and FaceTime. So literally, it's not technically, I live in Pennsylvania, but I help people all around the world and in the United States. Yeah, they can find me online anywhere.
Yeah. And I love the title of your book, Small Steps to Slim, because it's so true. I think many think in any big change they want to make in their life, it's going to be too hard. Why get started? And they let that fear stop them, because really it's not about taking all at once. It starts with first getting clear with your big why. What is your why? And then taking the small steps forward. It's not one step, bam, and oh my gosh, I'll never be able to do it. It's too huge. It's step by step.
Right. It's not an all or nothing thinking. It's taking step by step, baby steps. Rome was not built in a day. So
That's right.
It's all about baby steps.
Yeah. Well, this has been so wonderful, Ashvini. Thank you so much for sharing this very valuable information with our listeners. Everyone, please go to wellnessnutritionconcepts.com today and get that book, Small Steps to Slim, because I hear a whole bunch of people talking about how they want to get slim this summer. Well, it's not too late. Well, Ashvini, again, I want to thank you for coming to Savvy Central Radio.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Savvy Central Radio is home to over 100,000 listeners per month globally and runs in syndication on 8 AM and FM platforms, including iHeartRadio and 6 podcasting platforms. To find out more about our paid sponsorship opportunities or to become a guest and find out how we can help you get your message out to the world, call 718 area code 713-2289 or email at savvycentralradio@gmail.com.